Hey, what's up everybody? BDF 44 coming at you with another video, fresh out of bed. It's about 5:30 in the morning, and I figured I'd do a therapy session because I had a couple things on my mind. Nothing that would involve my own mental health or anything that would otherwise make me upset, but um, well, first let's jump into it. The first thing I want to say is I had a dream last night, nothing too major at all. But the message I'm here to bring is this, and it is not, I don't even really remember the dream. I just remember what I was to gain from it. Parents and children, if you guys are young, if you happen to stumble across my page, make sure your parents have consent for where you go. Parents, obviously, that goes without saying. But sometimes kids do ignore consent, and as we know, they'll leave the house while you sleep or escape or whatever, however you say it, run away from home. I don't even remember the dream, but that message, I'm sure, is meant for somebody. Just because they're going somewhere that you know where they're going, or they go regularly to a place regularly, they go there all the time. Each and every time they go there, you should know. It shouldn't be a situation where it's like, what time is it? 12 o'clock? Yeah, they're at so-and-so's house. Maybe in the old days, not anymore. Make sure your kid is where they're supposed to be each and every day. That's what I want to say. Each and every day. If they're at, like I used to go to my homeboy Lester's house every day. My mom knew I would go to Lester's house every day. What I'm saying is, in this era, mom needs to be checking to make sure I'm at Lester's house every day. That's the message. The end. Now, the second thing I want to talk about has zero to do with that. Zero to do with that. This has to do with what I heard from Joe Budden recently. You guys know I'm a fan of Joe Budden, and as a broadcaster, podcaster, a lot of his rap I didn't really jump into until later on. I'm a fan of his MCing, but I haven't dove into all of his music like I know his talent would allow me to enjoy. I haven't done it yet, but what I have heard, I understand him to be one of the great MCs, one of the greats. But that's not what it is. This is about him saying something on his pod that I think could really legitimately get him in the kind of trouble that he's been trying to long avoid. And now the thing about Joe is Joe often gets himself in trouble with people. He says things he ain't got no business saying. He comes from a raw world. He lived a humble way before rap, and he talked a lot about his addictions, some of his transgressions in life, with matters of the heart. We know about some of that kind of stuff, so we understand, especially those of us who follow the pod as closely as myself. I've been a fan of the podcast for probably about 4 or 5 years, and listened to it religiously right up until maybe about early last year, right? Where I kind of got away from it a little bit with all this other stuff that was just kind of taking away my attention, but I still kept an ear to the pod, still do. And this time, I guess he said he got up there. I didn't see the episode yet. I haven't gotten a chance to, and they snatched it down. I know it came out yesterday, but he essentially got on there and talking to his buddies. He was saying that he had, and I'm paraphrasing, I'll make sure I get this right, but essentially he had admitted to pretending to properly use condoms. He was saying it in a joking manner. To say that he was joking or not joking, I think would be to minimize the seriousness of what it is that's being said and how people are taking it. For me to deem that he's telling a joke or not telling a joke, I don't think it's appropriate. I think a lot of times people make that decision when they're telling the story and I think it sways the opinions of those who are listening. I think he intended for it to be funny. I do not know he was telling a joke. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's the key to my thought. But in listening to the pod, you hear stuff like that from him, and you understand the balance of it all, because you know exactly how raw and how horrible Joe Budden, the old Joe Budden, used to be, because he talks about it 3-4 times an episode. So if he did something illegal or horrible as a human being in the past, I think he thinks we think that's fine. That's the problem. As a fan of Joe, if I were a friend to Joe, I would tell him the rawness of your past needs to stay there. And I say the same thing about Cardi B. Some of these people that we celebrate, their lives before they got famous wasn't all that positive. They did things that bad people do sometimes. They did things that they had no business doing before they found their dreams. Not everybody out here was just a law-abiding citizen with great morals and great understandings of how to be best represented in themselves. No, some of these people come from some of the rawest parts of the world, and they acted like it before they found themselves. And listening to Joe speak, he was one of those people. When the 90s and 80s was running around, 90s, I don't know about 80s, but like more so in the 90s, he was doing a lot. He was involved in some things that had his mind altered, and because of it, he involved himself in stuff that probably could have got him locked up several times over. I think because you see a lot of people like Jay-Z, not a lot of people, but specifically Jay-Z, who has told us about his transgressions, who is one of the most famous people in the world, who has never been revisited for some of those transgressions. So for his success, and I know Joe Budden patterns a lot of what it is that he does after Jay, I think he sees Jay and people like Jay and say, well, since it's been a long time and everybody knows where we come from, it ain't nothing to just give little tidbits of what it was back in the day. It ain't nothing to tell people how bad it used to be, because I've changed. But we need to be honest. Joe Budden is very, very, very intelligent, extremely intelligent, and he knows that that is not how this works with others. You can be revisited and tried for things years and years and years down the road. A lifetime later, they can come back and try you for something. Did we not learn from Bill Cosby? Did we not learn from others? I get on this camera because I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed because I feel like I'm one of the people who understand Joe Budden. But that's not who he's talking to when he speaks that way. He's speaking to people who don't know of him that well. People who already have a mentality about him already. People who don't know of different conversations that have been had on that pod that give us enough to balance it out, to know who it is we're listening to when we hear him say stuff like that. That's the point. I've heard 170 conversations to balance that out that make me say, okay, that dude used to be on some other stuff, but now the conversations that he brings to the forefront are some of the most important conversations we need as creatives, because he helps people find their own value in their art forms. The questions that weren't even asked about value were being asked when he started thinking about them. When he started going through different avenues and starting to get certain deals and having doors closed on him, he started helping others understand what it is he was running into. And I think that's one of his biggest attributes to the game. It's one of the reasons why I listen to him so closely, is because I know he looks at things in a way that very few do. And I pride myself on being like that too. But when you're like that, especially when you're successful and like that, you're going to have people who want to bring you down. And as I always say, and I say this literally always, when you give your enemies ammunition, they will fire it back at you. Now, I cannot condone any of the past sins of anyone. And I've taken this from Joe Budden himself. I can't condone what any of you people do. I take this from Joe himself. I can't co-sign none of y'all. Why? Because I'm only in my head, I'm only in my situation, and I don't know what people do. As much as I love them, as much as I respect them, as much as I appreciate your art, as much as I pray for you, whatever, at the end of the day, what you do in the dark, I cannot see, and because of it, I cannot confirm your character in that way. I can just go by what I'm seeing. This kind of ties into what we were talking about at the beginning of the video, trust. Making sure your kids are where they're supposed to be, even though you think that you know. These type of things you cannot confirm. You think you know somebody, you don't know nothing. But what I can say is I know of my own demons. I know what I struggle with in the dark. And I also know how I'm doing in regards to governing myself against those things. You understand what I'm saying? Not the finite understanding that the outside world would have as it pertains to my wrongdoings. He is what he did wrong, or he is what he did right. No. Inside, how are you doing? How are you able to overcome some of those old norms that no longer serve you? Things that made you look bad, things that could have had you thrown in jails, things that could have been so horrible in nature that now you would have to stop yourself if you could stop yourself from doing those things. How are you doing in controlling those transgressions? Because the outside world sees it black and white, but the reality is on the inside, it's an everyday practice to govern oneself against bull crap that doesn't serve us at all. Demons that want to bring the worst out of us and ultimately silence us. Stuff that you did when you didn't know that those things led straight to your end. You understand what I'm saying? The Joe Budden who engaged in any of the stuff that we're talking about did not have the things in life to guard against that would otherwise give him the wisdom to think twice about even considering those things. But it's a funny thing about sins, it's a funny thing about karma. It don't care about how you're doing. It just has a tab and a clock. That's it. Tab that you need to pay and a clock that's going to continue whether you're changed as a person or not, which is why you do not confess to old crimes on camera. Can I be any more clear? That's why I wanted to turn on this camera, because if we're going to get on here as 30 plus and 40-year-old people getting on kids about snitching on themselves and throwing all kinds of different stuff on camera so that they can be seen by the feds, then you have to understand that we are still susceptible to the same stuff that they are, even though those things are not being done right now. You're going to go to the same jail as if you did that stuff this morning. And if you ain't aware of that reality, that's something you will learn the hard way. And so this is what I got to say to my guy Joe Budden. I can't condone what it is that you said you did, but the old Joe, I expected to do that and worse. And I also believe that that person is no longer in control of what Joe Budden's about. But I think he has to govern against those old ways just like the rest of us with demons inside. It's not about black or white, whether those things define you. You have to live with those, and you have to have them not control your life. I don't know who all fights with what, struggles with what. I don't know. They say everybody has demons. I don't know that. I don't know. What I do know is I got my own, and Joe Budden has his, and he needs not be sitting up here revealing what they look like in 2022 when they don't even act anymore in 2022. Unless they're still active, and if that's the case, then he needs to go sit down just like anybody else who would do some old crazy, evil stuff like that. And let's talk about what it is he did. This is stupid, bro. What essentially he was saying he was doing was putting on condoms, and then with the intention of busting through them, getting the thinnest skin condom he could find, with the intention of busting through them. Bro, that does not benefit you. If we want to talk about stupid stuff, that's real freaking stupid, bro. Because first of all, before we even get into you breaking someone else's trust and what all that represents, you putting your own safety at risk, because there's infinite amount of things that you need to guard against when you're unprotected with people you do not know, and people you do for that matter. But anytime you attempt to be unprotected, you're putting yourself at risk for all the things that come with that. And I don't need to be a doctor on the screen to tell you that you don't want everything that comes with that. And that's the first thing. The second thing is the consensual aspect of it, which should be the first thing. But since we're talking about the interior and that person themselves, we'll start with how it affects them. But honestly, it ain't about that. You're taking away someone else's right to be safe. You deserve jail time for that 20, 30, 40 years later. I don't care if you did it when you were 17 years old. You could have gave that woman something. She could have gave you something. You could have a child here now because of that. And all the different things that come with that. So let's say he did this when he was 17. He's 40-something now. You got a 22-year-old, 20-something-year-old person running around because of that decision you made. And I'm supposed to just be cool and laugh it off because you're sitting there talking to your homeboys. What if you did it to my sister? Is it funny now? You did it to my daughter. Is it funny now? Maybe because it was done 25 years ago, it ain't as funny. You do it 25 minutes ago, it's still funny to me. Just because I'm a fan, I can't treat him differently than I would treat you. But what I can say is I'm pretty sure he did that when he was young. Didn't have wisdom in his head, hadn't gotten some of the butt kickings that he's gotten since that's taught him not to do that. You know, sometimes people do stuff like that. The karma kicks their butts, and then it gets revealed. Because that's how God is sometimes. You know, I talk to you guys about my prayer list. I've never revealed the whole prayer list. It's over 100 people names on there. Some of them are private people in my life. A lot of them are celebrities. Joe Budden's on that list. He's been on that list for over a year and a half. It's amazing because when I started praying for him, he was in the middle of a certain scandal. I think he had some stuff going on. I don't remember what it was. Every 6 months, somebody's coming out trying to use something in his old character to bring down what it is he's trying to do right now. And I know what he's trying to do right now. He's trying to build a whole network. The man wants to be a billionaire, but these are the things that get in his way. These are the things. Even more so than some of the relationship issues in terms of like not relationships with women, but relationships with his buddies and business partners. Even more so, in my opinion, having watched him so closely than those issues, is his mouth revealing to us the rawness of his mind in ways like this that allow people who hate him, who probably want to silence other aspects of his voice, he gives them an opportunity to shoot that ammo back at him that he gives them through saying stuff like this, reminding all of us of how much jail time he probably deserved as a young person. These are the type of things that you have to say. Now, when you open your mouth, you allow people to throw you away. You didn't have no purpose back then. You found purpose, and now you're letting them destroy it. You'd have did better just killing yourself back then if that's what your plan was, rather than letting yourself get so close to where you're trying to get to and then let them snatch it away from you. You know what can happen now because Joe did this? This is the part that angers me as a fan of his. Now 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 women can come out and say he did that to them. And we got to hold it as credible. We will have to literally listen to all of them because of this bullcrap that came out of his mouth. And the probability of this happening is high now. Very high. That's the part that just bothers me as somebody who supports what it is that he does. Now we just wait for him to come out. This is why you don't do this. You know, he often jokes about the pod being a safe space. Brother, ain't nothing a safe space. Not when you got millions of people listening to you. Same thing we say about ACT. It's ironic because academics went through this last week in regards to the hip hop old school fight and the Lil Wayne's daughter situation. It's the same thing, man. You just at the end of the day, you gotta be careful what comes out of your mouth, who all hears it, what it is that your intention is now versus when it is that certain things are being said. All of that stuff encompasses everything about what others will be able to throw at you if you keep your side of the fence clean. Yes, we know you did some things in the past, but we don't need to know where the bones are buried. In regards to Jay-Z, he did this and that and the third, but we don't know you can't try him for it. This, all you need is 4 or 5 women to come out and say, yeah, he did that. Then he has to face all of it. I mean, every dollar gets thrown at lawyers. Everything he's got going on with his business gets thrown at that. And it ain't nobody's fault but his. And this is why I say it starts with the things that it starts with the agreements you make when you leave the house. And when it comes to revisionist stuff and stuff that happens 20 years ago, it can't do nothing about it. But the agreements you make when you leave the house have to be something along the lines of what I've learned today and what I know now has to be applied. All that other stuff, the old stuff I did when I was a child, it has to be put aside because now I guard against different things. And even though I still enjoy that type of folly or whatever, even though I'm still stupid enough to enjoy that type of nonsense, I need to be smart enough to not engage in that type of nonsense, because at the end of the day, if I do, I can still be tried for it today. If I speak on it, if I do, I can still go down for it today. This is what it's about. And of course, going through the process of trying to take a condom off without somebody knowing is rape. In case we haven't made that clear in the 22 minutes we've been speaking, that's R-A-P-E. And if you try that with one of my family members, I'm going to look at it as such. I'm not going to see it as some young innocent kid who's trying to, none of that. And I don't care how old you are. If I found out Joe did this to my sister 25 years ago, like I said, I'm not treating this like it was done 25 years ago. I don't care, you know what I mean? Like, and I feel if it was on she was on the other foot, he'd feel the same way. This is why it's so important that he understand why stuff like this can't be uttered out of his mouth. Because if we're talking about your loved one, you want smoke. It ain't something you looking back and saying, it's just a little something. And I saw what he said in the shade room. He said all they want is black men in jail. No, brother. No. We can't do that. We can't do that. When our mouths get us in trouble and we reveal our demons to the world, we can't sit back and get mad at our enemies for throwing back at us the ammo that we gave them. No. Accountability, Joseph. That's what gets him in trouble all the damn time, man. It's the way he chooses to display his accountability. A lot of people say he has no accountability. It's about how you choose to display what it is that you have. And the moment you get in trouble for something you said and did, you want to get mad at the people who are reacting to it or blame them or whatever. They're not going to receive that in a way that's going to allow you to receive what it is you want to receive from that. They ain't going to receive that. All they're going to say is this is an excuse and push on with what they're doing. Proceeding to get you canceled. So, I mean, it is what it is. When you have purpose now, you found purpose, you got to guard against anything that would otherwise destroy that purpose. And them old demons from your past, you best believe their whole purpose was to keep you from that purpose. And if you can't see that they're still hard at work years and years later, then they're definitely going to succeed in what it is they're trying to do. This is spiritual warfare, gentlemen. Ladies, this is not as simple as surface understanding. There's always something to guard against that you cannot see, which is why I believe in faith so strong. Because if you don't, you're just vulnerable no matter how hard you're working at what you're doing. You need something to govern your spirit. You need something to keep you from doing stuff like this, to undo all the hard work that you're putting in. That's what God does for me. He keeps me understanding where those things exist in my own mind. And if I don't understand exactly where those things are, that they exist stays true to me. I'll never let myself lose sight of the fact that they do. They're there. So that's what I want to say, man. I just want to get that out, man. Academics made a mistake last week, thinking that he could have a safe space on his platform, say whatever you want to say, but when you plaster it out to 1 million different people, 1 billion different people, they're going to get it elsewhere. They're not going to get it from your platform. They're going to get it from the person who splices your videos. You see what I'm saying? That's the world we're in. There's no safe space. If you have an audience that plasters out, then that audience can take your voice and do with it what they will and give it to an entirely different audience that's not paying attention to you. So please, there are no safe spaces on this internet. Not next to your homies, with your audience, not on Twitch with your audience. No, you don't have just your audience. Everybody is watching all the time. If not right now, a bit later, and you gotta see it that way. Everybody's so caught up in who's looking at something right now, but this stuff is on the internet. It's recorded, bro. We can come back and watch it later. Everything has to be, you have to assume everybody's going to see everything if you record it. That's basically what it is. It's just a matter of when. That's why I don't do Twitter, because some things, Twitter can't be undone. I never understood Twitter. So you're trying to tell me I could say something in the moment and it can be recorded for all time and never deleted? From the very beginning, that seemed like bad math to me. From the very beginning, I said, hell no, I'm not signing up for that. And all of you are crazy for signing up for that. I think I've tweeted maybe 3 times. You tell me I can't delete something I've said? I'm not that person anymore. I don't have the same things to guard against. I got wisdom now, I got understanding now, enlightenment now. I've got my butt kicked by some of those thoughts I was thinking. Karma's come and ransack my life from some of that bad energy. I don't have that anymore. Why the hell do I want people to still see those things? Why the hell do I want to bring those things out of my mouth? Why would I want them recorded on Twitter? Why on 25 years later would I say this stuff on my platform? See what I'm saying? We got to start thinking about forever, people. If everything you're doing is for right now, and you're thinking about the numbers right now, and you think about the deals right now, then believe me, you are going to neglect the biggest part of all of this, which is that right now's people aren't the ones that's going to be focused on what it is you're saying. It's tomorrow's people that are going to spend more time on it than today's people. Believe me, they will. That will define who you are, because it's going to be plastered out louder than your positive stuff, louder than your conversations about independence and finding value, louder than any conversation about wanting to see black people stop fighting each other, or seeing people be more respectful of street politics and not talk about certain things on their platform that can get real things done. Like, ain't nobody gonna pay attention to that wisdom. No, they're gonna listen to, condom. He didn't want to take it off. He didn't want to wear them. He didn't want to tell the person he was with, he's a rapist. That's who he is. That's what he's about. He needs to be silenced. And all that other stuff you talking about, so many different parallels. I think about what Kyrie Irving posted a couple weeks ago. The Jones guy. Everybody killed him for it. Bad guy. This ain't about Kyrie. It's about the Jones dude. What he said in the moment about the Sandy Hook people took all of the wisdom from anything else he would otherwise say. Even if he's telling everybody where to find millions of dollars without working. Because it's coming out of his toxic, disgraced mouth, it's not going to be considered wise by anyone who's listening. You understand what I'm saying? You got to guard against that. That Jones dude, he was trying to do everything he could to raise awareness about what he believed in that moment. It was bull crap. It was bull crap. He engaged in bad energy to try to push it. When he was proven wrong, he was disgraced and never heard from again. Now, when someone who wants to quote something that he says that does add up, does so, they get vilified because he said something, regardless of what it was. You're hurting the people who would listen to you and want to share what it is that you say. That's how much damage you do in situations like this, or in situations like that, when you neglect to respect the fullness of forever. When you engage in opening your mouth and spewing out whatever's in, if you don't think about how it can potentially affect forever, then you've neglected to understand what it is you're responsible for when speaking. So I think I got all of my points out, man. I wish the best for, first, the people who be negatively affected by such energy that Joe Budden described, whether it is something that he involved himself in or not. Anybody that would have otherwise been negatively affected or reminded of something, my energy of my prayers are sent out to you, because we don't play with any of that. We don't play with any of that. We don't like anyone taking advantage of people's bodies, taking their choices away, lying to them to get their own rocks off. Anything involving taking people's freedoms or invading people's space in any way. We are not positively thinking about any of that over here. Excuse me. I'm not in the business of canceling people I'm praying for. I'm just going to keep on praying for Joe. I've been praying for him. I ain't going to stop. Lord, put it in my heart that even if a person's guilty, you do not stop praying for them. And when I say you, I mean me, not you, me. That's something I found. I told you guys this on camera in one of my therapy sessions, right before I added another person to the list about 2-3 months ago. I came to terms that I wouldn't pull people off the list for being bad people or being guilty. In fact, I'd add some people onto that list that may not be all that great. Because it's not about me discerning who's best or who's not. I'm just praying. And so if a person's not good and I'm praying for them, then my hope is that the goodness around them gets cultivated and whatever evil plans they got planned don't work. That's how the prayers end up working from my end. But as it pertains to Joe Budden, man, when I started praying for him, as I said, he was going through a lot of stuff. But since then, things have kind of mellowed out, you know. It seems in his life things have gotten better since I started this process, it seems. But at the end of the day, no matter if you got a world full of people praying for you and rooting for you and all that, if you can't govern your own demons, it doesn't matter who's rooting for you. It don't matter how hard you work. You're going to undo all of it and disappoint every last one of those people. That's what I got to say. My name is BDF 44. I thank you all for watching.